Wargroove is a turn-based tactical strategy game from indie darlings Chucklefish. It seemingly combines the best aspects of Advanced Wars and Fire Emblem, but in a pretty packed genre, can this game set itself apart and find its groove? What's up, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I, as always, am Matt Tuna Turner, and today I've got another video game review for you guys. I will be reviewing Wargroove for the Nintendo Switch. Turn-based strategy games are one of my favorite genres, so I'm pretty excited to be playing this game finally. I know it's a little older, but yeah, here we are. Anyways, why don't I stop jabbering on and why don't we get into this review? In Wargroove, you and your opponent take turns duking it out with the goal to either kill the hero or destroy the command building. To do this, you deploy and build units and other machinations of war to overwhelm your opponent. Of course, war is expensive, and in Wargroove it's no different. In order to raise funds, you need to capture small villages so you can take some tax revenue and build and deploy a seemingly never-ending parade of units. Now you're probably thinking, that doesn't sound too difficult. It's actually pretty typical. That couldn't be further from the truth. Between the variety of units, which I'll get to shortly, using your hero effectively, and jockeying for funds and position, there's actually a great amount of strategery. Plus, the game itself has a high level of difficulty. On the topic of difficulty, the AI in this game is pretty aggressive, so battles often boil down to a single misstep, making the game pretty difficult. Thankfully, you can scale the difficulty, but doing so will make you ineligible for certain rank goals like S or A. Each battle pits you against an opponent, or more, in the familiar grid format as other tactical games. Once a victory is achieved, you are scored based on the amount of turns, your kill-to-death ratio, and critical attack stats, among others. There are 3 stars to get as well as a letter rank, and, if you're a completionist, earning all those stars and S ranks will keep you coming back for more. It all reminds me of one of my favorite TBS games, Advance Wars. This game is very similar to Advance Wars, except the CO is on the battlefield and can be killed for instant defeat. Just like Advance Wars, your hero unit has a special move that can be activated after a few turns. This is called their groove, and is where the game gets its name. Fighting alongside your hero is a variety of units you can train and build. Each faction has a plethora of ground troops, a few air units, some war machines, and some naval units. Sadly, the naval units don't appear until much later in the campaign. The units themselves are more or less the same no matter what faction you choose, and in some cases are a simple color swap and a small change of the sprite. Each faction has a foot soldier, a pikeman, an archer, some form of wizard, similar flying units, and a dog. I mean, look at this. Look, it's a Shiba! A Shiba! A Shiba! My Doge. Ah! Once you've made it through the campaign and the side missions, you can extend the gameplay even further by creating your own maps and even your own campaigns. Yep, your own campaigns, and then share them online to play with your friends and strangers. So, you can essentially beat this game and then start creating your own sequels and spin-offs. Great for any burgeoning game director to get their feet wet with. You can also play the original campaign or your created campaign online or in person in a co-op mode. Wargroove features a pretty robust local and online multiplayer section. You can even play with just one controller or Switch Lite by passing it around during couch co-op, kind of like Hot Potato. Taking the game online, you can either join a game lobby, create your own, or join a quick match. Quick matches are always 1v1, but if you join or create a lobby, you can play with up to 4 players in asynchronous multiplayer matches across not only the Nintendo Switch, but also the PC. Crossplay, baby! These days, matchmaking for quick play could take a while, so you're best to find an open lobby. Understandable after a few years on the market. Thankfully, people are still creating matches and lobbies, and there's so many options for these that you'll seldom get bored, although playing with friends is always best. There really isn't much I could say about the controls for Wargroove. The game does a really good job of walking you through what each of the buttons does, and it all feels very natural and intuitive. Certainly not a hindrance in any sense. You can't customize them, but really there's no need to do so. Wargroove starts out with the assassination of the Cherrystone Monarch by a vampire catwoman from the Felheim Legion. Yep, yeah, it's a bit of a mouthful. After a few months, a new monarch is crowned and the Felheim Legion's true plans are revealed. A full-blown invasion of the kingdom has begun. The new queen, Mercia, sets out on an adventure of discovery, frenzied battles, and friendship in order to turn away these undead invaders. The main campaign is a great one, and you get to play as a few different of the game's factions, all the while learning the game's systems and how each of the units work. The first few missions equate to your basic tutorial levels, but pretty soon the difficulty ramps up and you're out on your own. The entirety of the campaign can be finished in 20 to 30 hours depending on the strategery of your brain thinkings and the difficulty settings you want to use. Of course, if you want to get those top ranks and do all the side missions, it'll take you much longer. And when you get to play as Caesar the dog, I mean, why wouldn't you want to be a good boy and complete all those missions? As I mentioned, this game is a lot like Advance Wars. So why don't we take Advance Wars, but set it in medieval Europe, add some dragons, some vampires, and some mermaids, and, well, you've got the overall aesthetic of Wargroove. It's basically Advance Wars meets kind of Lord of the Rings almost. It's all beautifully animated with wonderful sprites and pixel art. There's so much character and charm in this 2D retro-inspired adventure. The sprites are big and colorful, the environments are beautiful and varied, and bringing it all together is some great sound design and a host of extra content. I love how the sprites are animated. While in a match, they all have this hypnotic little bounce. Plus, during the cutscenes and battle sequences, everything has so much emotion and a kind of cuteness to them. A little chibi almost. The cutscenes are so beautifully animated, and even though the story is all text-driven, there's these subtle little audio notes like gasps and screams and such that just add extra emphasis. It really helps to tie it all together quite nicely. The overall sound design is pretty great. The swords sound like they're hitting the metal armor, the fire sounds like it's burning down villages, and the water sounds really, well, wet. Each impact really feels like it has weight behind it, aided by the oomphs of the poor victims you're attacking. The music is a bit of a sour note. The tunes are wonderfully composed, but it just feels like you're always hearing the same tracks over and over again. Thankfully, there is a way to hear your favorites. Wargroove is stacked with extras. There's a codex that gives you information on every unit you've come across, plus a concept art gallery and a jukebox to hear some of your favorite tunes over again. The concept art was a great touch. I really wish more developers added stuff like this. AAA all the way down to indie. Especially in the absence of physical media and game manuals. It's just a really nice touch and shows that they care about the project. So, the final verdict for Wargroove on the Nintendo Switch. For the gameplay, it's your typical turn-based strategy game. It's incredibly difficult. The custom maps and even campaigns are great, and you've got online and local multiplayer. So I give it a 9. The controls, well, they're pretty damn good. So I give them an 8. For the story, it's a decent length, it's full of humor and drama and friendship, and there's a boatload of replayability, so I gave it an 8. For the presentation, this is probably my favorite part of the game. The pixel art is just amazing. It's so colorful and bright, and there's so much animation and emotion. There's, the little voice acting cues and all the extras, including the concept art gallery, is just, it's so awesome. So I gave it a 9, which brings the total of Wargroove for the Nintendo Switch to an 8.5. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed my review of Wargroove. It did take me a little while to get to this game. This game came out in 2018 or 2019. But I just, sometimes other games take priority. But when it was announced that Advance Wars, which is one of my favorite games of all time, is coming to the Switch, I was like, you know what, I have to play through Wargroove. I have to do it. So I did, and honestly, I'm so happy I did. If you're a fan of Wargroove or like the older Fire Emblems, sorry, not Wargroove, Advance Wars, see, it already mixing them up. If you're a fan of Advance Wars or some of the older Fire Emblems, I couldn't recommend this game enough. It is so good, and like it really harkens back to like Advance Wars on the GBA and the DS, even with the sort of inspired pixel art and just lightheartedness of it all. It's so good. Honestly, if you like those games and if you're like itching for something to play before Advance Wars comes out, like I was, play this game. Play it. Definitely recommend it. Anyways, if you like this content, please, maybe start a war with that subscribe button and then groove on over to that notification bell to let you know when more content comes out. I do try and release once a week, but this isn't my only job. So sometimes that doesn't happen. Life can finds a way to get in the way. Yeah, and I don't have a staff, so it's just me writing, capturing, editing, everything on my own. So yeah, I appreciate you stopping by, and if you do like it, let others know, and I will see you in the next video. Love you, bye.